Good day to each and everyone. We are the Group 14 and we are now going to report the Unit 4 Politics of Science and Technology. The reporters are yours truly, Bench Jeric B. Dulalas, followed by Jenica Byron, and lastly is the Glenn Balaba. Communication, Technology, and Political Conflict. Introduction to the special issue. Modern communication technology is emerging rapidly, with tremendous social implications. The key innovation introduced by this technology include the increased pervasiveness and the rich nature of digitally transmitted information, and a new type of network structure over which it is disseminated. The articles in this special issue present theoretical and empirical research on the relationship between communication, technology, and political conflict and violence. There are different pathways through which this can happen. Technology can facilitate collective action, but at the same time, give government the opportunity to censor content and gather intelligence about descendants. Also, audience effects can be introduced by the rich and instant transmission of information from conflict regions. The contributions to this special issue can be divided into three groups. First group of articles looks at the effects of old communication technologies with state-of-the-art methods, which is necessary to see if the effects of modern technology really differ. A second category of articles focuses on new communication technologies and try to assess their effect on conflict both theoretically and empirically. The third and last category reverses this question and looks at the reflection of war and violence in traditional and new media channels. Motivation. By the end of the year 2012, there were more internet-connected mobile devices than people on Earth. This technological innovation is not limited to the development of the world. The strongest growth in mobile internet traffic will occur in the Middle East and Africa. This trend illustrates two important developments that have taken place over the last decades. First, technology creates increasingly dense global networks of communication, linking individuals closer to others at home and abroad. Second, the use of this technology is becoming more pervasive in our everyday lives. This special issue provides a comprehensive selection of new research on the topic communication. Communication technology and political conflict. The articles grew out of a series of workshops bringing together scholars working on the topic. On the innovation, using technology for this purpose is of course not new. Newspapers, telephones, radio, and televisions constitute examples of all types of communication that have been around for decades or even centuries. Modern communication technologies, in contrast, are the most recent successor of these technologies that have emerged over the last 2 decades. Internet and cell phone communication are the most prominent examples of these technologies, and the majority of works presented in this special issue deals with these two. Effects. Why should ICT matter for conflict? Equipped with a basic understanding of the technical changes introduced by modern ICT, we can now turn to its social and political consequences, in particular those related to political conflict. as well as we see below and in the remainder of this special issue. These are recurrent themes of the literature on ICT and conflict. On the collective action, one of the most frequently mentioned ways that ICT is linked to political violence is through its effects on collective action. Typically, it is argued that the increased availability of information fosters mobilization of people and gives existing rebel forces better means for coordination. Censoring. Proponents of the beneficial effects of modern ICT hold that due to the global nature of the Internet, it should be less prone to government interference. With Internet-based communication, often relayed through servers abroad, this type of censorship appears to become more difficult in digital age. This can have effects on conflict motives. Citizens that are exposed to unfiltered information from abroad may become aware of their own situation and more critical of the regime. On the intelligence part, information flows in the digital networks, however, may also provide new opportunities for intelligence gathering. Recent revelations about the sophisticated monitoring capabilities of Western intelligence agencies have confirmed suspicions about how digital technology can be used to track users and the information they transmit. Because of the above mentioned automation of information transmission, it is now possible to also automate the collection of intelligence, which dramatically expand the number of users and volume of traffic that can be processed. On the audience effect, digital communication can provide a more detailed account of events, such as a violent conflict in Syria. This means conflict parties must be aware of the potential impact of their actions, as pictures and videos can quickly go viral. While the internet can help protesters coordinate, it can also aid governments in tracking opposition members. Cell phone technology can benefit rebel groups, but also allows the targeted population to share information about their activity, which can aid allows the targeted population to share information about their activity, which can aid counterinsurgency. The impact of information technology on conflict and violence depend on the actors using it and the type of information transmitted. For example, as much as protesters can coordinate with the help of the internet, it may at the same time help sinister government trace activists and the members of the opposition. Cell phone technology may benefit rebel groups and make them more efficient in fighting the government. There are nothing inherently good or bad about information technology. Its affects the conflict and violence depend on the actor using it, the way they use it, and the type of information that is transmitted. The contributions to special issues. The special issue addressed the challenges and understanding of effects and of modern ICT on conflict by presenting articles from the three categories. The first group analyzes the effects of old communication technologies to determine the impact of modern ICT. The second group focuses on the effects of modern ICT on conflict, both theoretical and empirical perspectives. The third group examines the reflection of war and violence in traditional and new media channels. The first part of the special issue examines the impact of media on protests and violence. It includes studies on the effects of TV coverage on the decision of people to join protests in East Germany, the contribution of phone connections between countries to spread of ethnic violence, and a comparison between the impact of radio reception and social media access on collective violence. The studies aim to determine whether the effects of new media are different from those of old media and to understand the mechanism that contribute to the spread of violence. While spatial proximity was frequently been shown to be the fostering diffusion, the analysis demonstrates that communication channels seems to have a similar function, illustrating the depth of distance at the international level. A direct comparison between old and modern technologies is offered by Warren, comparing the impact of radio reception on collective violence to the one of social media access. He finds diverging effects. The former is pacifying in the general, but the latter seems to increase violence. The second part of the special issue focuses on the effects of new technologies and includes several articles. One of these articles takes issues with the claim that mobile information technology unilaterally benefits descendant groups by giving them organizational capacity.
Social media and politics. The social media must be used by parliaments, parliamentarians, governments, and political parties as they are highly effective tools to involve and inform citizens in public policy making and in the formation of governments. But all these groups must develop strategies to deal with a wide array of both positive and negative effects of rapidly growing media, argued participants in final plenary session. The positive effect of the various forms of social media were laid out as members recorded a high degree of their own participation in some or all of the social media. This media can empower the public in a way that is far faster, cheaper, and more pervasive than other forms of communication. They encourage pluralism, reach young people more than other media, and encourage greater participation, accountability, and transparency. Parliamentarians can use their celebrity status in such media as Facebook and Twitter to interest people in politics and political issues. Social media have been effective in election campaign fundraising, especially encouraging small contributions from individual voters. But delegate cautioned that the social media alone cannot change the world. An individual in political field must learn how to distinguish between good and bad issues. However, the passage cautions that social media alone cannot change the world, and individuals in political field must learn how to distinguish between good and bad uses of this media. So social media posting can be misleading, manipulative, and can misinform. Responsible and irrelevant material can also overload the readers and some genuine political reporting and comment. Social media are not yet fully available in developing countries and even in countries with good urban internet access. They are often not readily accessible by rural citizens and by the poor. Despite these challenges, the workshop concluded that the social media are such powerful, effective, and low cost information sources that the problems surrounding them cannot and should not stop parliaments and members from developing effective ways to use them to inform responsibly. In doing so, they can also help teach young people how to separate good information from bad. So example for this is that as when a political party uses social media to spread false information about their opponent. This can misinform and manipulate voters and can have negative consequences for democracy. And another example is when individuals use social media to organize protests and riots, which can lead to violence and destruction of property. On the other hand, social media can be used positively by political parties to engage with citizens and solicit their opinions on important issues. They can also be used by governments to provide accurate and up to date information during emergencies such as natural disasters and public health crises. Political power of social media, the good and the bad. Politics is not a field made for Twitter's instantaneous updates. So successful politicians are experts that are making sure words never offend, even when taken completely out of context. This means all of the bland, genital, party approved canned speeches the public is so accustomed to hearing out of our representatives. There really is no room for spontaneity of the tip of the brain thoughts that are prevalent on Twitter. And when there is, it can result in a public backlash if one is not careful. Yet, Twitter holds one of the largest and most active user bases in the world of social media, which could present huge benefits to any corporation, small business, or politicians. So, meaning the political power of social media, specifically Twitter, and the highlights of both potential benefits and drawbacks. While Twitter has one of the largest and most active users based on world of social media, it may not be the ideal platform for politicians due to the need to carefully craft messages that cannot offend and adhere to party approved positions. Politicians are often successful when they make sure their words never offend, even when taken out of context. The lack of control over the message can result in public backlash if politicians are not careful. Twitter can serve as a powerful tool for political campaigns to reach and engage with potential voters, raise funds, and spread their messages. It can also help the politicians communicate directly with the constituents, bypassing traditional media channel. However, as with any social platform, there are potential pitfalls to using Twitter in politics. Politicians must be careful not to say anything that could be taken out of context or offend potential voters. They must also be mindful of the role of fake news and propaganda in social media and take steps to combat it. Overall, while Twitter may not be the ideal platform for politicians due to the need to carefully craft messages, it remains a powerful tool for political campaigns and communication with constituents. By using social media responsibly and strategically, politicians can harness its political power of good. The bad. Always deliver the bad news first. With update as instantaneous as they are on Twitter, accidents happen. You might mistake your tweet bar for your search bar. You might hit enter too soon. You might have a battle with autocorrect, hilarious but embarrassing. Even if you're well versed in Twitter technology, you can't ward against accidents. So, the importance of being careful when using Twitter or any social media platforms, as accident can easily happen. Even if you are familiar with the technology, mistakes can still occur, such as accidentally tweeting a message instead of searching for it, pressing the enter button too soon, or falling victim to autocorrect errors. And unfortunately, deleting a tweet is not a reliable way of removing it from the internet, especially if you are a public figure with many followers. A screenshot can be taken of the original message, making it difficult to completely erase it. The passage gives an example of a British politician, Jesse Norman, who retweeted a joke about a murder trial, which can deemed inappropriate. Even though he quickly deleted the tweet and apologized, the news articles about it are still available online. It is best to deliver bad news first when using Twitter, presumably to get it out of the way early on. This is because accident can happen, and it is important to be transparent and accountable for any mistake made on the platform. For examples, like on 2020, Philippine Senator Sherwin Gatchalian faced criticism for a tweet he posted about a celebrity who had tested positive for COVID 19. The tweet was seen as insensitive and disrespectful to the person's privacy, and Gatchalian later apologized. In 2019, Philippine Senator Tito Soto received backlash for a tweet in which he defended his allegedly plagiarism of a speech by former U.S. Senator Robert Kennedy. Many criticized Soto for not acknowledging the source of the speech and for his dismissive attitudes toward criticism. And in 2016, Philippine President Rodrigo Duterte faced criticism for a tweet in which he used a homophobic slur to refer to the U.S. ambassador to the Philippines. The tweet was widely condemned as discriminatory and inappropriate, and Duterte later apologized. These examples illustrate how even high-profile politicians in the Philippines can make mistakes on social media and how those mistakes can have serious consequences. As the passage suggests, it is important for the politicians to be careful and deliberate when using social media and to consider the potential impact of their words and actions. The good. The politicians are essentially brands in and themselves. Instead of a good or service, however, their product is a service of leadership and their work is representing the common people to the government. As such, they stand to lose as much as a brand, but they also stand to gain the same amount. In considering the gaps above, they could happen to a brand as well. What makes it more difficult to deal with for a politician is the fact that they must keep up a certain type of face to the public. In other words, their brand image is static or more difficult to move, whereas a typical brand can change the direction more easily. However, these gaps are also relatively rare and will almost never happen if the social media coordinators knows its trade. In this passage, the author is drawing a comparison between politicians and brands. Politicians, like brands, are essential products that are marketed to the public with the goal of gaining support and loyalty. However, instead of offering a tangible product or services, politicians offer the service of leadership and representation to the common people. Like brands, politicians can also lose support based on their actions and behavior. When politicians make mistakes, such as gaffes mentioned in the passage, it can harm their reputation and diminish the trust that people have in them. However, unlike brands, politicians must maintain a certain image or persona to the public, which can be more difficult to change. For, for example, if a brand changes their image or direction, they can rebrand themselves and potentially win back customers who were previously dissatisfied. However, if a politician changes their image or direction too dramatically, they risk alienating their base of supporters and losing the trust of the public. Nevertheless, the passage also notes that social media coordinators can help politicians avoid making these gaps by being skilled in their trade. By understanding how to use social media effectively and avoiding common pitfalls, social media coordinators can help politicians maintain a positive image and avoid damaging gaps.
How social media affects politics. The political landscape has changed quite a bit in the last couple of decades. The internet has played a large role in transformation. Social media, in particular, is now a serious factor in political campaigns and in the way people think about the issues. Candidates and their supporters constantly post their views on Facebook and Twitter. Each party has its own pages, from which it broadcasts propagandas and requests for donations. Let's look at some of leading ways that social media influence politics today.
Politicians are spending more and more money on social media, but is it worth it? Last year, research firm Borrell Associates estimated political campaigns spent more than $1.4 billion on digital advertising in 2016. That includes ads for video, mobile, email, social media, and online searches. Hamid bin Doss, press secretary for U.S. Representative Keith Ellison, offered some insight on how effective social media is.
With social media, it's kind of a more of a direct pathway of getting their message out there.
To reach voters online, especially young voters, politicians and staffers try to use blunt and authentic language that's responsive to the news. That's trickier than you'd think, but a key to using social media seems to be consistency.
And I think that's why you kind of see politicians with very concrete ideological platforms and very concrete ideas or visions of what they want to see this country be.
Politicians who've had some success on social media include Ted Lieu, whose 2017 tweet apparently won most viral post during a House Democrats online all-star competition to gain new followers on social media. Another politician who does well on social platforms online, President Donald Trump.
Donald Trump is pushing 1 billion Twitter mentions.
I tweeted today, @RealDonaldTrump, I tweet.
I have my own form of media.
Of course, there are drawbacks to politicians using social media. Before the 2016 presidential election, the Pew Research Center found more than a third of social media users surveyed were, quote, worn out by the amount of political content they encounter. During the 2016 election, a recent study found political content on Facebook and Twitter was more partisan and unreliable than the news media. For politicians, bin Doss says the risk of creating partisan echo chambers is real, but says they can avoid that by speaking directly to voters as a whole instead of targeted audiences.
If we learned anything in the last couple of election cycles, there's a huge part of this country that politicians really aren't speaking to. There's a huge part of this country that traditional news media is not speaking to. And I think we're going to see the limits of social media as well. Like, nothing replaces knocking on someone's door and talking to them in person.
News around the clock. By accelerating the speed at which news, poll results, and rumors are spread and making it 24/7 occurrence, social media has changed politics. The major of people spend more time on social media platforms like Facebook, Twitter, and they do on authoritative news or political website. So, wherever they log in, they are presented with the most recent stories and viewpoints published by their friends. The impact of polls. Political poll findings, which might be contradictory and incorrect, but nevertheless have significant impact of elections, have become more common thanks to social media. Facebook allows participation and a continual posting of polls result on social media puts pressure on candidates to perform better than their rivals. Direct interaction with politicians. One of the positive effects that social media has on politics is the opportunity for voters to interact more easily with candidates and elected officials. Traditionally, if you wanted to meet politicians or candidates, you have to attend a live event. Not everyone is able to do this. With modern technology, it's now possible to attend virtual events where you can participate in live streaming events, and interact with politicians and candidates. Demographic and targeting. Similar to how the advertising sector employs targeting, social media enables politicians and candidates to focus their campaigns and messaging to particular voters group. This makes it possible for candidates to customize their message for particular demographic such as women, college, and Latinos. Next, rumors, fake news, and conspiracies. Social media has made it difficult to distinguish between actual news and fake news. With a constant stream of memes, links, and rumors about political leaders and candidates that may contain a mixture of truth, lies, satires, and speculation. Additionally, there are websites that have political agendas or promotion numerous unfounded conspiracy theories. Even if your friends and followers don't mean to mislead you, it's still possible to swabbled by the false information they publish. Thus, before accepting anything, one must exercise considerable caution. Next, the power of confirmation bias, particularly when it comes to continuous subjects like politics. Confirmation bias is hidden power on social media that can support our pre-existing beliefs. As most of social media acquaintances have similar opinions to our own, the stuff we encounter frequently expresses the viewpoint, making it more difficult to evaluate their points of view. But by interacting with people who hold different opinions and using social media to broaden our horizons, we may get our confirmation bias. Next, social media and the future of politics. The effect of social media on society are still being studied, especially in the political sector. There are plans of online voting, which might boost electoral participation and boost social media's power. Online polling methods will spread and improve, and there will be a rise in virtual political event. It will be interesting to observe how this plays out social media's influence on politics grows along with its popularity. Thank you for watching and listening our short educational report.